All right, we've got a few minutes until we begin. Looks like there's a number of people still joining, but we'll be back in a minute to get started. All right, looks like we still have a few people joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining here today. Going through a webinar, Tag Audits Made Easy. We went through a couple weeks ago, the general tag auditing process, some of the different pieces of documentation that you would want for audits, as well as testing and validation. And we've gone through it for both tags as well as inventory. So we wanted to do more of a Tag Inspector specific training webinar here today, specifically around tag audits. Get a ton of questions about doing tag audits. We do a number of these. So I want to walk you through the process of how exactly to leverage the tool in order to be able to get the basics, put together a general tag inventory, what you're going to want to include in that, as well as how to really leverage the tool in order to collect the more granular information around data that's being collected and how we can automate some of this auditing process. So to begin with, just a little bit of general house cleaning or housekeeping. So about Tag Inspector, your presenter. Tag Inspector, as many of you are aware, is a product of InfoTrust LLC. On the InfoTrust side of things, we do web analytics, tag management, consulting, and support, as well as product development, with Tag Inspector being the signature software there. On an annual basis, working with several thousand websites globally, doing a number of educational type of events around digital marketing, training programs, including these educational webinars. We have offices in Cincinnati, U.S. headquarters, as well as Dubai, and soon to be in Spain. Your presenter here today, as usual, is myself, Lucas. I am our Tag Inspector product manager and also do tag management consulting work. So as far as what we'll be covering here today, as usual, these Tag Inspector, the more so training webinars will be a little bit shorter. Typically it'll last around 30 minutes. We have a number of items to go through today and actually want to quickly throw together a high-level tag inventory with you all using information pulled from Tag Inspectors that might take a couple minutes. But as far as what we'll cover in that 30 minutes, we go through some of the general tag audit basics, what you'll need, why we're doing audits, things to keep in mind. Go through the actual tag inventory process. One thing that I'll really touch on as we go through the entire process in general is that we're going to want to go high level and then dig down deeper to the low level items. We need to understand what's there, what's needed, what the requirements are before we go in and pull out all that granular information, like individual data points collected by a specific tag on a specific user interaction on a specific page. That low-level information without the high-level context is not really usable. So I want to follow that same process here as we go through the actual audit training and start with the tag inventory. We'll then go through how to collect the different data requirements and do some general auditing / testing for specific platforms that we've identified as necessary in our inventory. From there, I'll show how that extends to collecting as well as testing and auditing the data layer requirements, structure, as well as data points. And then at the end, we'll get into some summary and Q&A. As always, please drop your questions into the little question pane. I'll try to cover as many as I can as I'm actually going through. For this particular webinar, since we're trying to keep it to right around 30 minutes, I'll likely answer those questions at the end. But anything that we don't get to, definitely will follow up. And then also, if you after watching this webinar, turn around and start going through and doing your own audit, if you have any questions that pop up throughout that process, please reach out to us. Happy to help out in any way. So, to begin, some general tag audit basics. Number one thing we always want to keep in mind is that you need to have a goal. Too many people reach out, and too many people, just in general, talking about what audits are going into it of, I want to just be able to collect every single thing. I need to know every single little thing that's happening on the website from analytics, from a marketing technology perspective. While knowing all that is good, if we don't have a goal, if we don't have anything specifically that we're trying to optimize or specifically that we're wanting to audit against, we have, again, no context, so it's really just taking a lot of time to gather a lot of information, and then let's figure out what to do with it later. We want to start out with the particular goal so we know what to dig into. If we're auditing and we're wanting to see how are tags specifically affecting performance or user experience on our website, we have some sort of a business problem of we're noticing really slow load times, we're seeing that it's really picking up of late, we know we have a bunch of different technologies and tracking pixels or tracking tags that are on the website. Are these affecting performance of the website, and if so, how? And then how can we audit to identify what are the platforms that are our worst offenders, and how can we optimize the deployment and the architecture of the tags in order to minimize any sort of those impacts. So have a goal in mind. That type of goal is completely different than, we're migrating to a new analytics platform or upgrading our analytics platform, so we need to know different data requirements. Have that goal, have a purpose when you're going into this in order to be able to fit the plan around that. So as far as the purpose and requirements when it comes to a tag audit, what we're wanting to do is assess the current landscape. And again, compare the current landscape to what that expectation or what that goal is. So we know the context, the specific pieces of information that we need to be collecting and really need to be digging into. And some of those things that we're going to need to know are what tags are present on our website. What are they? Where are they? What pages are they on? What does the coverage look like? And then how does each thing load? Is it loading from the page source? Is it loading through the tag management system? And then on that more advanced level, also where is it loading in the context of page timing events and other tags? One thing I'll be touching on here as we go through the inventory, as well as just generally throughout the process. One thing you're going to want to start doing is really prioritizing the loading of tags. A lot of times when you see any sort of like a data discrepancy or a page performance issue as the result of a tag, it's not an all or nothing sort of thing. It has nothing to do with your actual implementation from a technical sense of that specific platform. It's how it's behaving in the context of everything else that's happening on the page and all the other tags that are loading. So if one particular platform that isn't that important to your business, maybe one team is leveraging it a little bit, or you're running some sort of a test or a pilot with it, that should not be taking loading priority over your analytics platform that you have an entire team and multiple different business units all leveraging the data from there. So we're going to want to look at where these different things are loading in the course of the overall page load in order to be able to prioritize and give certain platforms that maybe have a very low potential performance impact, as well as a very high leverage when it comes to the reporting and data that's being collected there. We want those loading first in the page to give them a chance again. So we're going to want to know that context. Similar to that, what are the performance implications of having this particular platform on this page or on this website? What are the latency figures? Is it something that's consistently loading so that I know I can optimize my overall tag architecture and be confident that this is actually going to load where I'm thinking it is? What is the size of the configuration that tag is loading in? Is it piggybacking or loading in any other third parties that are adding to overall page weight? Aspects like that, as well as the all-important, what data is being collected, what are the requirements for that tag, is everything that I'm thinking that I'm relying on and reporting actually being collected by that platform on my website. And then finally, that deployment method, that goes back to how tags are loading. Is it loading through the tag management system? Is it loading from the page source? Should it be loading from the tag management system? And auditing and checking that behavior. Just want to reiterate here, it is a multi-phase approach. We want to start at the high level. We want to understand what's going on, just the overall landscape, and then we can start really digging into each of the smaller aspects or each specific platform on the website. Starting at that very high level, the first step in the process is our tag inventory. Just understanding what is there, where these things are, how each thing is loading, so that we can then start developing a plan of action, and again, start drilling down into individual tools. So the tag inventory, the easiest way to collect this information is with our Tag Inspector scan reports. Run a scan of the entire website, be able to see all the different tags that are loading, at least on initial page load with the scans. All those different platforms, it's going to give you a comprehensive list of the different tags, the different pixels that are loading across each page. And it's also going to give you this very clear hierarchy of exactly how these different platforms are loading. Where are the instances where something might be piggybacking in or loading in additional third parties, so that we can accurately assess moving forward if that's something that we want to be loading on the website. So we can run a scan. If you're leveraging Tag Inspector real-time, obviously this information is being collected there as well, just in terms of all the different platforms that are being loaded. And what we're going to want to do is put everything in this format, and I'm going to walk through exactly how we can do that. But at a high level here, what we need to know is the tag name, what is the platform, category, subcategory of those different tags, just to be able to give the business unit some more context and yourselves some more context as to what is this particular platform. Initiating tag location, that goes back to how it's being loaded or where it's loading from, and then the coverage. So pages containing pages scanned or total page loads collected if we're looking at real-time data. Understanding that just to know, is this something that I really need to be worrying about first, or number two, is a platform like my tag management system or my analytics tool not loading across every single page on the website, which is going to mean you have a gap in data collection. So for the tag inventory, what we're doing here, a couple different ways of collecting this information. As I mentioned, you can just run a scan across your entire website. In the report details here, you're within the UI, the basis of a tag inventory. So you're going to have every single tag that's being loaded, how many pages it's on, and then exactly how each platform is loading by just clicking through in the scan reports. Now, I know most businesses like to, especially when making internal decisions or going through this process, they want all the information summarized in one place, maybe put it in a spreadsheet so you can add some of that additional business information into there. So for doing that, how we can go about that process, if you just export directly from the UI in any scan report, what that's going to give you is this output. I can zoom in a little bit here so we can see that better. Here in column A, what this output is, it's just a full export of the scan information that was collected. So this is individual hit information. So for each request being sent from a particular page, all of that information that is collected as we're scanning that website is again going to be here. So we have information such as our tag name, the individual request, the page that it's loading on, what the status code of that request is, line number that it's loading from, performance information around latency, the size, again, how large is that configuration that's being loaded in, what needs to be downloaded by the browser for that particular tag, and then we have just the hierarchy in a stack trace or text format. We can use this again as the basis of our inventory. So if I just do a quick remove duplicates on our tag name, I now have a list of all of the unique tags that are loading on my website. I can get rid of a number of these, at least for this initial purpose. Again, we wanted to keep this high level for the purpose of the inventory. And then what I will do is use just a lookup on one of our library files, which you can download these just from the website. If you're struggling finding that, just reach out to me, and we can absolutely provide it as a benefit for joining the webinar today. But I'll just do a quick VLOOKUP on this with the tag name, or I can pull in the category, subcategory, as you saw in that other report. And boom, again, I have the basis of just an overview of what tags are on my website. Now, as far as walking through and understanding that hierarchy, I will just take this and reference the report itself. So if I'm looking at the Facebook pixel, I can click on Facebook pixel, see exactly how it's loaded. Here in the visual, I can see it's loading both from the page source as well as through Google Tag Manager. I can look at the stack trace here, confirm that information. If I want to, kind of next step, dig into Facebook pixel specifically, and I say, hey, it should only be loading through GTM. Where is it loading from the source? I can get that information here as well. But I'll pull this out and I'll just drop it into my general inventory by saying, initiating location. So I can drop that information in here. Now I'll know what is the tag, category, subcategory, initiating location, and I can also see here how many pages is that tag loading on out of the total number of pages scanned. Now, this is just a general example, but this would be your output for, again, a high-level tag inventory. So for my website, tag name, what are the unique platforms that are loading? Category, subcategory of that particular tag or platform, what is that initiating location, coverage information, and now I can start putting in my business context, which is the manual part of an audit. I need to understand who owns these platforms. Are they on our website as the result of a request from maybe an agency or a partner? If so, who is that particular person? Is there legal approval for the data that's being collected by this particular tag? Do we have a data sharing agreement in place? If it's something that's being piggybacked in, are we even aware that this thing is collecting information on our users? So I'm going to drop that into my inventory file to be able to fill in that context. Same thing with security approval. Keep, remove, and then migrate. That's more in the second step of your tag policy as you're putting that together. But the final column here is priority. So going through and ranking the different platforms, and we're going to use that information as we're looking at the timing information, like I mentioned before. So is something that is a really high leverage, high priority platform, is it actually loading at the top end of the overall load of all of the page, as well as all the different tags on there? And if it's a really heavy, like I pointed out in that export file, seeing that tag size, if it's something that is itself pretty large, or if it's loading in 5, 6 other platforms, is it something that's loading up at the very top? Is it something we want to deprioritize and load later in that page load to ensure no performance implications as well as data collection implications for other platforms or for our page? So that's where we're going to go through and really use that priority as we get to the architecture stage of the process. Now, once you have this tag inventory complete, which pretty simple, right? and high level there, we're doing all the heavy lifting just by going through and leveraging Tag Inspector to collect that information. But once you have all of that, you're well on your way to having full audit complete. This is going to basically become the playbook for moving forward. Once you understand what is on the site, where it is, and how we need to be adjusting everything, now we can start planning to take actions and actually creating that overall architecture for optimization. So just to reiterate the different things that go into that inventory when it comes to tag data. So we have the actual business context. That's what we're filling in by working with the business units. How is this platform used? Who owns and uses this particular tag? Why is it on our website? Is it owned by a different owner or a partner or a different agency? And then also, what is the priority for this particular platform? In addition, we can now start digging into, now that we know what's there, the technical information about the tags. So that performance information, latency of the different requests, size of the different tags, what data is being collected. Ideally, we are assessing this and auditing this against a standard, but if we can just go through and understand everything that's collected by the tags, even if we're creating a new architecture, we can see, okay, these are the different data requirements and put that into the requirements for our data layer. I need to know the loading behavior. Again, how is this tag getting there? Is it piggybacking? Is it loading through the tag management system? Is it loading from the source? And then being able to do that gap analysis based upon all the information we've collected there and comparing it to those standards that I reference. So high level inventory, now lower level pulling out individual tag data for as a part of the audit for specific platforms that are loading on our website. And that's what I want to get into now. So how can we leverage the data and the information that we're collecting in Tag Inspector in order to fuel and organize all these different data requirements for our audit and for our testing? So as I showed you in the scan reports, we're able to see all the different tags that are on the website. You can see what pages these are loading on. I can also see the individual raw requests, so I can see what information is being collected right now. Now, there is some additional legwork, ideally, in this stage by understanding what are the requirements. So when it comes to the implementation documentation for Facebook or for Google Analytics, what do we as a business want to be tracking? Why are we using this particular platform? And as a result, what needs to be collected by that tag in order for us to serve that purpose? If it's Facebook, are we just using it for conversion tracking for our different Facebook campaigns? And what are those conversions? Or are we also using it for audience creation? And how do we want to be building audiences? Understanding, the business implications of those different things is going to dictate how these different things should be loaded, where they should be loaded, what they should be tracking, the requirements, basically. In addition to going through and doing that exercise with the business units that are owning these different tags, and again, just harkening back to our tag inventory, understanding who owns and who leverages that platform is how we're able to go through and collect that information, do those different types of interviews. Now, if we're purely looking at what's happening right now on our websites, or if we have those requirements, now we need to audit and see what is the delta between actual and expected. We can dig into, again, the Tag Inspector reporting here. So this is a screenshot from our RealTime module, which, as many of you are familiar, it is our tag-based approach. So as actual users go through and interact with your website, we're just recording all tag behavior that's happening. But we can get extremely granular here. This is a look at one page load of one page on our website. We can see all of the hits that are being sent by each platform, timing information, and then we have that request URL where we'll parse out the parameters. Now, the parameters of a tag request are the data that's being collected. So if I'm looking at Google Analytics and in my page tracking hit, I need 4 different custom dimensions around user type, or I don't know where the user is coming from, some additional context about the content that's being read on that particular page. That information is going to be in those parameters within the actual tag request that's being sent back up to Google Analytics. So by being able to parse this out and see that information within the reporting, you can just go into a Tag Inspector real-time report, see, okay, on my confirmation page, this particular tag is collecting this particular information. And that's what I can start breaking out here. So for all the different tags that are loading on my website, what are the interactions, based upon the implementation documentation and what I've learned from our business unit, as well as what I've learned from what is being tracked right now. I can start putting together those requirements for the pages that this should be on, the interactions that these tags should be executing on. And then looking at our reporting, I can say, okay, for these different interactions on these different pages, this is what is collected right now, and this is what needs to be. So again, that's where you have the audit or the testing, and knowing what the goal is, implementation of this particular platform. These are the things that need to be there. This is what's actually happening. That's where you can have some actionable next steps from an overall audit. Now, I want to give you a quick look at what this can look like as you're just trying to determine those different data requirements. Now, this is just a quick, dirty example that I had used on our previous webinar, actually. So going through and letting ourselves be informed by the inventory that we've put together, I know that these are the tags that are on my website that I want to keep, right? So these are the things that I really need to be worrying about as I'm going through and understanding, okay, what is the current tag behavior? Where should these things be loading? And what is the data that should be collected? So understanding that, again, pulling that from our inventory and working with those business units, I can now say, okay, for these platforms, these are the interactions that need to be tracked. These are the pages that these different tags should be loaded on. Now I can quickly audit if that coverage is correct simply by looking back at, again, my Tag Inspector scan report. If it's something like Hotjar or Crux or Tag Inspector that should be loading across every single page, is it? Is my coverage 100% of pages? If not, boom, we have some additional next steps for actions to take in order to optimize our tagging. But I can break out here something like Criteo, where it should be loading uniquely on the home page, listing page, product, basket, transaction. And I can list out just those different interactions. And now I have a comprehensive list of specific pages where I'm going to need special information in order to be able to inform these tags, as well as interactions, where again I need the same thing. Now, pulling together all of those, I can now say for each of these different platforms, what are the data points that are necessary on each of these pages? Something like that I can just break out in a general table where I can say, okay, on the home page, I need this information in order to conditionally execute this tag on that page, as well as to collect complete information for that tag on that page. Now I break this out in a table. Again, I can just pull out of Tag Inspector with real-time reporting, pull out, okay, for these different pages, these are all the different attributes that are collected by different tags, overlay that information and have something similar here. I'm going to need to translate that into what this data point actually represents, but I can have it all in one place. And this is your end result. Home page, listing page, subcategory listing page, product page, when someone adds something to a bag, on my cart page, and then confirmation. So a basic e-commerce site here. These are the different attributes that I need, and then these are what those values should represent on each of those pages. Doing something like this, you can ensure that every single tag that you have on your sites and that is going through that audit process and contained within that inventory is going to have complete and accurate information, again, as long as implementation is correct. Now I can go back to, here's what my requirements are, this is what's actually happening, compare those two things, see what needs to be fixed. I want to just quickly underscore the importance of we're doing an audit in order to improve. It goes back to that first idea of having a goal. We're not just collecting information for the sake of collecting information. We're collecting information in order to get better in our general tag architecture. So this can give us all those different requirements. Now that we're digging into the specific tags, we know at this stage what are all the different platforms on our website, how is each one loading, how many pages, what does coverage look like, and we know that additional business context. With that tag-specific information, we now have the different data requirements. We know what should be and what is, in fact, being collected by all the different platforms. Now this goes into and translates into the data layer. So a lot of people are now leveraging a central data layer or central data object where all the different tags, all the different platforms on their website are referencing one central place for the information that they need. If you're not using a data layer currently, I'd highly, highly recommend it. And going through this audit process is going to give you all the information that you're going to need in order to put into that general architecture. So we have the tag requirements as far as data that's needed on these different interactions and on these different pages. We can now translate that into what that looks like in our data layer. So we have the different attributes, and based upon those requirements, we can see, is everything there? If we already have a data layer object, is everything there that needs to be right now? If not, what needs to be added? Or if we're going through the process of trying to centralize and implement that data layer object, what needs to go into that? And that comes in both the form of events that need to be pushed into there, as well as contextual information for the individual data points that need to be going with that as well. So two aspects here. One, again, breaking out the different variables or the requirements for data points, and then also the structure. Now, the structure of your data layer object is going to be dictated typically by two things. One, the tag management system that you're using. Telium's UTag object is quite a bit different from the data layer that is leveraged by Google Tag Manager, as well as how a data object or a data layer and concept is going to be different if you're using like Adobe versus Google Analytics. Those two things, your analytics platform and the tag management system, are going to dictate the structure that object should be in. But when going through an audit process, we need to make sure, one, we need to understand what that structure should be in addition to the data points that need to be contained within it. And we need to be checking that structure along with the data points that should be there as we're going through the audit. So documenting everything out in just a format similar to this, we can say on this page we should have these different attributes and it should be in this particular structure, and we can check against that. Now we can again leverage Tag Inspector in an automated fashion to be able to accomplish the same goal by defining what should be within that data layer object and just different validation rules within Tag Inspector, and then applying those to our website to automatically check, is it a pass, is it a fail, is it there, is it not, and just list the pages where those failures are happening. So additional leveraging here and automation available within Tag Inspector. Now, I know we've gone a little bit over here today, but I hope it was helpful. So just to summarize basically what all we went through. So when it comes to doing a tag audit, we need to focus on really 3 top-level keys. 1, have a goal, understand what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you're auditing, and why you're going through the process. I mean, a tag audit takes time, it takes some resources. It's not something that we should just be, doing for no reason. To be able to, I'm curious about everything that's on the website. Well, why? Are we wanting to improve a certain type of tracking? Are we wanting to implement a data layer? Are we wanting to optimize the performance of the tags and minimize any potential for user experience issues? Or is it all of the above? In which case you were needing to layer in a lot more information into that audit process. But number 2, start at the high level and then work your way down. So first understand, just with an inventory, what are the unique platforms that are loading on my website? How many pages are those on? How is this loading? Is it actually in use? That's going to give us a blueprint for what needs to be kept, what needs to be removed, how different things should be loading moving forward as we put together the architecture. The final thing is, as we get down into that lower level, take a holistic view of the tags. That includes what data needs to be collected, what the prioritization of that particular platform should be in the context of the other platforms and tags that are loading on your website, as well as what are those performance impacts. So where should it be loading in the course of our page load? Is it something that maybe should be delayed until always after the full DOM content loaded page timing event, and really structuring everything around those? So keep those 3 things in mind as we're going through this audit process, and everything will work out well at the end. At this point, I can turn it over to any questions. And looking through here, I'm not really seeing anything come through, which is perfectly fine. As I mentioned at the outset, is if you are taking this information, start running through the overall audit process, let us know. I'm more than happy to help you out with some of those general tag classifications. Look, we went through with the inventory categories, subcategories, getting you a document for that, as well as just answering any questions and being of a resource as walking through that process. Reach out to us. Happy to help, and we will be back in a couple weeks for another Tag Inspector webinar. So look for us on that. We'll be sending out some emails inviting you all to that webinar, and hope to see you in the future. Thank you all very much.